interesting story that so one day, like I have one daughter and she is phenomenal and she is always, perfectly dressed and always the bows. And I have a wonderful husband who is very contributed and all this kind of thing. But one day I looked down and I looked at my toes and I looked like I had like a French manicure, but I didn't. I just hadn't had a moment to go and have my toes painted, which is so small. But when I looked at my toes, I was like, "Are you shit? I can't. Are you kidding me?" I'm like, I haven't been doing a thing for myself in months. And I looked at my feet. I'm like, this is not okay. Like, I'm like, what am I like? And everything was okay except for I forgot about me. And that was like, so there's a moment I'm sure for all of you that you've been like, what am I doing? Like, your kids will come up to you and say, I'm so hungry. And if you're sitting down to eat, you're like, okay, what do you want? And you leave your meal and it's so small. But what part of us can't say, in 20 minutes, I'm going to set a timer, and in 20 minutes, when this goes off, I'm going to make you whatever you want to eat. Like, at what point do we all have that moment that we're like, what the heck are we doing? And that's the moment that for me, that's the moment that I was lost for a second. And things were great, but it wasn't because I wasn't paying attention to myself. So I wonder if we all could contribute our moment of when that moment happened for everybody. You know what I mean? Like I even took a picture of my feet because it's hilarious. That was like, I don't have to live like this. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, this
Oh,
is
I know.
crazy. And I forgot about who I was for a second, all while trying to make all the balls stay in the air. So I wonder if that wouldn't be helpful because we all are so different and we all have, two kids, three kids, one kid, babies, 8-year-olds, right? I think that might be something really, really good to just have each person be able to share the story that they came out of that moment of I can be both. I can be me and I can be mom and I can do things for everybody in within
Mm,
boundaries.
mm.
Does that make
I like
sense?
that.
Yeah.
Hey, Mandy. I just wanted to welcome you in. Everyone,
Hi.
Mandy,
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
thanks for coming. Of
Thanks for having me.
course.
No, I totally can resonate with that because having basically Irish twins, I was one
Oh,
right after the other. So, Jake and I, 13 years together, bought a house. 6 months later, got married in the backyard of that house. 6 months later, after getting married, I was pregnant with my first child. And then 6 months after that, you know, after having Wake, I had Lucy. So I didn't get a moment for myself between buying a house, getting married, kid after kid. And I thought to myself, all right, I have now friends that don't have kids, that aren't married, that don't own homes, and they're going out and going away. And I'm not getting a moment to myself because now I've got babies and I've got, a mortgage and I'm trying to get myself in a situation. And it did bring me down for a little bit, but then I realized, I can make time for myself. So because Jake is a really good supporter, I would sit there and be like, you know what? I need 20 minutes to myself just to go do whatever I want to do, whether it was, you know, just sit in a corner. I didn't care. I just wanted to get something done, but it just gave me that small amount of time to do it. And I didn't get there probably until, Wake was two, Lucy was, in a walking phase, but just getting to that point was a weight off my shoulders. But the real time that I fully got to be myself was when I was living with my in-laws when my house was being rebuilt. And I had to learn how to not only give myself personal space from everybody, but the kids too. And it made it so I was able to learn how to appreciate my time and get out of the house. Go get my hair done finally after not getting it cut since 2020. And, just going for a walk, going and meeting up with a friend finally. But it was so nice to just get out. And it was so nice to just get my own space. Even if it was just to go sit in a parking lot and read a book, I didn't care. It was probably the weirdest thing for someone to see me do, but it was just something I got to do for myself. And I think it is hard for moms to not feel that guilt. I think the biggest thing right there is you carry these babies, you grow this connection, then you take care of them and you raise them for where they are, and then the next thing you know, they're at an age that they're a little more independent, but you still are needed. And then you feel that guilt being like, oh, you know what? I can finally go off and I can do something. I can take a shower while they're playing, but you still feel that guilt like, but I can take the shower later because they want to play with me. You know what I mean? And now it's to the point that, I'll be like, you know what, guys? Let me go take the shower. Let mommy get the griminess off her, and then I'll be back and we'll have a big Barbie game, or we'll just play hide and seek. I don't care. But I think my biggest thing I had to overcome was the guilt. Guilt was huge.
I think you nailed that. Guilt is, yeah, I definitely can resonate with that. I feel like for me, this one's kind of hard. I think it took me a while to realize this, but I'm one of those people, as corny as it sounds, like I fantasized about being a mother my whole life. My whole life. I like felt like I was literally put on this earth to be a mom. And it was something that I just like, I just could not wait. It was like a fantasy fairy tale for me. And I remember having Wesson in 2020, January 2020, 6 weeks old, the world shuts down. And I found with him, like with that experience, like my expectations kind of backfired on me. Just because it wasn't a fairy tale, and I didn't realize, I think, all of the layers of motherhood. Like I really kind of just knew that I was going to just love this human and everything was going to be great. And I'm a teacher, so I'm just going to be the best, like most patient, educational mom there is. Like screen time, why would I ever do that? Like, I was one of those. And I remember the moment with like Wesson of just being in my house. Like my husband had to go back to work and I was by myself. And I just remember feeling really bad and sad because I almost felt like I wasn't the mom I wanted to be. And I wasn't going, and I was afraid. Like I was like, so wait a second, like if this experience isn't the way I thought it was going to be, I had to really start to dig into that. Like, so how do I turn this around? Like, or how do I make this into what I want it to be? And it's something that's really carried through my life for the past 4 years, especially with Liam, now that I have more of like an awareness. Because it is, I mean, it's very hard to like, I think in life in general, we have these expectations of things and we paint this picture. I know it like, don't make assumptions almost, right? And it's sometimes that backtracking of like really trying to just be present, because although sometimes these situations aren't maybe my expectations, I have actually found that a lot of motherhood for me has been actually better than I even imagined it would be because of the growth that I'm experiencing. Like, and I think finally admitting to myself, like, I don't got this. And it's okay that I don't got this. I don't have to got this. So I think that was a big moment for me as like a control freak and a type A. I think once I kind of learned to let go of the reins a little bit and almost let motherhood teach me, I think that was a big turning point for me.
None of us have got this. But at the same time, we've all got this, but we totally don't.
And when I think on that note too, Chantel, like you brought up, you had Wesson, your first child, during one of the most massive moments of our lives, right? So you have this fantasy, taking him places, going places, traveling, getting him out there, experiencing what you experienced, and then the world shuts down. And it's one of those situations, because I was the same way with Lucy. I had, and with Wake, I had the world. I could take him wherever, 2018, do whatever. And then Lucy, born April 2020, nothing. And it's like, I've talked to moms, and I brought that up before. I've talked to moms that have had kids in 2020 and now they're pregnant again. And they don't even know how to go grocery shopping with the babies. they're like, do I get a carry-on? Do I get the insert for the carriage? Do I do this? Do I?
How do I
It's like,
pack a
hey,
diaper bag? I couldn't pack a
right?
diaper bag to go out. That
And I
happened to
talked,
me.
like, I was at a birthday party talking to these moms, and I'm like, look, one step at a time, because this is something that's not just new for you as a mom, but as a person, because now you are taking yourself back into a world that you are now not used to, but now your child's not used to. And you need to work on it yourself to be able to work on it for your child. So get that insert if you want to, if you feel safer with that insert. Get that strap on in the front and carry that baby. But, you know, just make sure you get the bottles, the diapers, and the ointment is the real main things for the diaper bag. And, you know, everything else will come naturally as you learn. And I think that is also another step in the being able to go out and do things before you had children to now becoming a mom and having to transition into a whole different person and having to transition yourself into this whole different person while taking care of another person. So you're taking care of yourself and trying to learn these new things while also teaching someone else new things. So you're teaching yourself while teaching someone else. And it can be an overload, man. It's just like, and just watching those moms, I give 100% props, because it's scary when you go from being in a bubble to just open out into the world again. So
All right, I gotta jump in. My kids are a lot older, so I cannot even imagine having a newborn during the pandemic. So props to, I just can't even imagine. Like mine could like talk and do their own thing by the time we hit that. So, I mean, totally different world, right? Having a new one. But Chantal, as you were talking, I got a little teary eyed when you said that moment when all of a sudden you were like, I'm not the mom that I want to be. I don't know the exact words you said, but the mom that I want to be for my kids. I'm not, you know, because I had that moment probably more than once, right? Like, um, there's been a lot of like little moments over the years and in time. And I think I was older than you. So I'm like, always like props to you all who are younger that are figuring this all out now. That we have to take care of ourselves. But it was like after my divorce, and I was taking care of you know, we got divorced, my son wasn't even one. So I had a, you know, almost 1 year old and a 6 year old at the time. And I stayed in the big house and bought him out so that I didn't have to move my kids or my dog. My dog probably had more of a say, you know, because I didn't want him to not have the dog door in the yard. And it was like, so I stayed there and I was doing the work. And I just remember nights we got the most snow we ever had the year my ex-husband moved out. Like I couldn't even see the fence in my backyard. Like 4-foot fence was gone, didn't exist. There was so much snow. And I was out there at midnight, snow blowing the deck so the deck wouldn't fall over while I'm in between going in because my son's waking up in the middle of the night and I have to, you know, it was just like a lot, right? But we just do. So I think as moms, like you just do it. You just keep going. But I was literally on that, I'll never forget being on that deck and like everything was going wrong. Like it was just one of those days and nights. And I worked at Fidelity at the time. So I was working from home during the day with 2 kids at home because it was a snow day and all the things. And I just remember going, am I on the Truman Show? Like, is someone recording my life and like all the disasters that were happening? And it was just this like I was constantly working, either taking care of the kids, working on my house, working at work or from home or whatever. It was just like, go, 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 go. And then I would crash on the couch and wake up in the middle of the night and then go. And it was just like, but you just kept going. And as moms, that's what we do. And I would read the books and research and go online on how my life could be better. And then like what I could basically, how I could make myself better, because something was definitely wrong with me, right? Like it's always like we got to go to something that we have to fix, or I, you know, speak for myself, right? But like there's something that I have to fix about myself, right? And I remember having this moment of like, this is not the mom that my kids deserve. Not that I deserve, right? It was still about the kids at the time. My kids don't deserve this. And I finally took, because my ex-husband had half the time, right? So like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I would work or work around the house when my kids were with him. And I finally ventured out. And of course, joined a gym because I have to fix something about myself, right? But I found like a women's gym that then turned me on to like soul spirit days for me. And I'm gonna hire a coach. She did more for me than my therapist ever did, you know? So like little baby steps, but I started doing things that were completely out of my comfort zone, which led me to Reiki and all the things I'm doing now. But it was like that, it was at those moments of like, my kids don't deserve this. And then I remember when one day, after doing all the work, so much work, because like to get there, we have to do a lot of work, right? Life can't be so easy. So I did all this work on myself to start putting myself first. But it was really, I was putting myself first for my kids. But then my daughter says to me, Mom, I'm just so happy that you're happy.
Mhm.
And I like lost it. Because you weren't happy before, Mom, but now you're happy. And so now, Colby, like those moments where that guilt comes in, because they still it still happens sometimes. I think about that moment when she was that mirror for me to show me that what I'm doing for my kids is working, first off, for them, but really for me, because she saw that I was happy. And oh my gosh, I actually was happy. I am happy, right? But we are teaching them that it's okay for them to put themselves first, so that hopefully they're not figuring it out when they're in their late 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, because I was a lot older, right? Like, and so when I spend time for me and I focus on me, it's for me now, right? But it's also for them, because then they know that they can do it for themselves, right? And I even teach them now, like, you spend time, like, you are the most important person for you. You deserve everything that you dream of, and you can start doing it now. And you don't have to always do what everyone else thinks. Because I went from that people pleaser, pleasing my ex-husband, or my husband at the time, my parents. I mean, I found a letter I wrote, or a thing I wrote when I was 16 years old for school that talked about me basically being a people pleaser. And I think 30 years, that was 30 years ago. Okay. And I just say now, like, my hope is that my children are not writing something that they're describing themselves. It was just me describing myself. It was not, the purpose was not about me being a people pleaser. It was just describing my life. And when you read the story, it was all about me doing for everybody else. All right. So when that guilt creeps in, just know that you putting yourself first is a gift for your children. So sorry, I just went off off of that, but like that was just like, you know, so like Geraldine, like keep that picture of your toes, right? Like keep that in your head, because there are those aha moments, right? And when it feeds into, like Chantel, like your why, right? Like, why do you do this? And not just like, why do you do work, right? Like, why are you making the choices that you're making for your life? Why are you putting yourself first? Why are we on this call right now? Well, you know what? Because it's feeding me and my soul, which trickles out. Your energy, I have a quote right in front of me that says, your higher frequency helps others step up to that higher vibration. I have to remind myself, and we do have to remind ourselves because we're human, right? But like, we should never feel guilty. Like we should never feel guilty for this. Okay, I'll be quiet now, but that's my part of my story.
I love that. I think too, that kind of goes with, for me, my story a little bit, Jill, in terms of creating a new story that wasn't just like recreating my mom's. I think some of that like mentality about stripping yourself of you to serve others was like the Christian view, the kind person, the ultimate human, you know, and truly, like, we lose ourselves in spaces when that's our framework, right? And it can happen in motherhood, it can happen in the workplace, it can happen in a relationship, right? It can happen anywhere. You know, I was similar. I had my little one. I've only got one. And I had her right before the pandemic, and she was 3 months old. Pandemic started. And it was like, truly, I relied on my mom a lot. Like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. My mom's going to come over. She's going to help me. Nope, not there anymore. She didn't come over. We didn't see her. Like, you know, like I talked to her and stuff, but like, it was like, for me, that umbilical cord got cut. And I didn't realize how much codependence I had in that space until I was awoken from that. So actually, for me, being a mom was about also like, I want my child to know she has the skills and the confidence to do things without me. I don't want her to feel that codependence when she's me at this point in her life. And I also want her to know her authentic self. I really felt like I didn't know my authentic self at that point in time. Like, even just like, I mean, we become a mom the second you become pregnant, in my mind. And really, like, it was like my brain shifted in that pregnancy. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, I have this human who now I am fully responsible for. And everything that matters in my life is around that. Nothing matters anymore. What I put into my body has to do with that. Everything, like, literally, what activities am I doing? Nope, can't do that. I'm pregnant. Nope, can't eat that. I'm pregnant. Like, it literally changes the chemistry of your brain. And so when you have this small human who's 100% relying on you, they can't survive without you. It wasn't until I pulled myself out of the depths of that part, right? Like that newborn phase where you're like, oh my gosh. Like, it really wasn't until like she was 1 that I was like, oh my gosh, I can take a breath. Like, let me just think for a second about me. Like, I remember being like, when she turned 1, this is so sad. But I was like, and obviously I showered, but I was like, I'm going to shower for 20 minutes a day by myself, and my husband's going to take care of her, and that's going to be my me time. And that was it. that was my only me time. But I was like, I need to do this for me because I just needed to feel not attached, as sad as that kind of sounds, but also kind of like grounding and like I'm still here with me and I'm still me. And then it was like, okay, but who is me? And so that has really been what it's been for me, is like truly self-discovery and removing those previous agreements, that like we've talked about, in order to try to find my authentic self. Because I want my child to know her authentic self. And for me, instead of trying to make her someone I want her to be, to observe her as her authentic self, celebrate who she is, and I pivot with who she is. I shift my view of where she's going. That's important to me.
I love this. This was the
Love that.
perfect. I feel like we're getting, I think it's probably a good time to just wrap this one up, but I love that that was perfect. Strelin, way to bring that up. That was a really good idea. And I like that this whole topic of authentic self came up because I think just naturally, like something that I have been just thinking about a lot lately is this whole idea that I love this idea of like energy, and I really believe that if we can just learn to communicate with ourselves, and you don't have to be a spiritual person, just listen to yourself, like your body and your mind tells you when something doesn't feel right. And have you ever been in those stages of motherhood where like your soul doesn't feel right? Like something's just off, and I think that in order for us to be the parents we want to be, we have to be our authentic selves. We have to. It's a non-negotiable. And I think that like is where this found part of this is going to come from. Like we just talked about the lost part, and there's still going to be more lost moments for us guys. Hate to break it, right? Like it's inevitable. Like we're going to get lost over and over again. But the key is to never stop trying to find, like we always have to keep finding, because we're never going to raise our children correctly, if there is such thing, if we're not our authentic selves. And I think that we need to listen to ourselves more, because I think that our bodies and our minds and our souls will tell us when we're not on the right path. And I think that when we're aligned and like we are fueling our body and we're feeding our minds and we're collaborating like this, I think that it helps us just further find who we are. And I think that when we can really decide like this starts with us, I find that it will ripple effect into all of those things, and also model for our children that like you got to figure that out. Like, who are you? It's not our job to mold them into who they are. It's our job to foster who they are. It's our job to like just like get the foundation and give them like the stable, like I always picture this like scaffolding for them. Like they're little, they need the scaffolds. They can't like necessarily hold their house up by themselves yet, but we're not building the damn house for them. Like they got to build the damn house, like we are just here to give them the scaffolds that they can learn how to build their own house. So
That made me feel that way. So the other day, I just had a horrible day and I just sat down. I just cried. And Wade comes out and he's somehow learned from me that you have to find a way to be humor friendly when someone is sad. Like Sheldon with a warm cup of something when someone's upset. And he comes out and I just hear, you better watch out. You better not pout. You better not cry, or whatever he did. And he said, Wakey Doo is coming for hugs. And just at that point, he came up to me and he goes, it's okay, mommy. You say it's okay for us to cry and show our emotions. You show yours too. You show them. And I was just like, oh my God, where did you come from?
Good
Just,
job,
it was
Mom.
the best thing ever.
That's
He goes,
it.
I'm going
Yep,
to
that's
sit here
it.
with you and I'll rub your back like you rub mine. I'm like,
Good job.
so it's just,
if they pat yourself on the back for that one.
Yeah.
he just